John invited me to a Bible study that night, and I said, well, we'll see. And I left and just feeling like, okay, this is going to be a good 4 years. And I was super excited. I had no idea what was going to happen. And I knew that all of that stone was going to have to come down if I wanted to be who God wanted me to be. So the next week I went back just because it was good to go there and just be away from schoolwork and everything and just sit and talk to God or pray, or, you know, I didn't have my guitar at that time. I hadn't started playing sophomore year, anyway, or freshman year. Anyway, Thanksgiving rolled around. It was fall, and I went back there the next week, and lo and behold, their whole Bible study group was there, and I saw John, and I was like, oh, God, what are you doing? You know, and just very outright was like, you need to go to these people and put me there at the right time in the right place. And I went there, and just with these people, their hearts were so open and inviting, and they were so wonderful, and I knew that God had worked special things in each one of these people's life to allow them to have a heart like that. And I wanted to be like that. I knew I didn't want to be hard. I didn't, it pushes people away. And I prayed with them that night. We read, and they, asked questions about me. And again, I was just able to open up to them. And I said, I didn't tell them my life story, but I just told them that, I'm looking for people that really encourage me and that will help me through these next 4 years, because it's been rough the last part of my life. And they were like, yeah. And they all prayed for me, and it got intense in there, like just praying. And they were, one guy was like, it was some kind of praying that I'd never seen before, laying on of the hands, and I was like, oh Jesus, but it really opened my heart, and that began my life at Fellowship Church in college, and they grew me and led me to places of renewal and refreshing. And specific times in my life, I remember, just praying. One night I said, Lord, I'm ready, but I'm not ready. But I need you to completely tear down everything that I've built. It was bold, but I knew that I had to get rid of it, and I think he was prompting me to get rid of it. And I said, Lord, I want to love you, and I want to love you the way, the best I could humanly possibly can. And I said, I want to love your people, and I know that I can't. I want to be like these people at my church, and I can't. And I told him completely tear down everything. I told him to tear my entire life apart, tear down all the lies that I'd ever told myself, that I've ever put into my head, that my family's put into my head, renew them, refresh them, and rebuild a wonderful and beautiful city in my heart. And sure enough, it was painful. I remember calling my uncle. My uncle is, the one I'm talking about is my mom's brother. I had met him too, and he's a wonderful and beautiful man, and so loving, or is becoming loving. And I called him, because I couldn't call my mom. I knew that my mom wouldn't understand. She was, if anything, in the exact same place that I was. And I called him, and I just cried. And I said, I don't know who I am. And I physically, mentally thought I was insane and crazy, because I was scared. I had no idea who I was. I didn't know whose daughter I was. I didn't know who I mattered to. I didn't even know if who my dad was. I'd never seen my dad in my life. And I was just talking to my uncle, and I'm sure my uncle was like, what the heck? What the heck is going on with this girl? And it was like sophomore year, and just, I was lost, and I said, I don't know who I am. Am I a good person? Do I do good things? Is school who I really am? Am I pretty? Am I worth anything to anyone? It was a hard time. And he was gracious enough to not hang up on me. And I maybe had known him for maybe a year and a half or so, 2 years. And he just talked me down and he said, you're a good person and you're your mom's daughter and you do good things and I'm so proud of you. At that time, it was really good to hear that from someone that didn't. It was to hear that from someone else. And things like that. I would break down sometimes, and God would just be chipping away at the blocks, rebuilding foundations, and I was definitely built on sand. Shifting sand, earthquake sand, quicksand. And part of my life, I had met Peter when we were younger, freshman and sophomore year, and he had a unique gift of just knowing what exactly the heart was saying out of someone, and he helped me a lot through the rebuilding, just helping me to speak about things and not hold them or pretend that they weren't there, and I think that was most of my problem. Sometimes still is my problem. I hold things in and it's just easier not to deal with them. Although back then holding those things in was a lot deadlier than holding in the fact that what I was dealing with yesterday, my self-worth and things I thought about men. But if you saw yesterday's blog, I guess you would think those things are dire because I could potentially lose my best relationship I've ever had because of the lies that I'm believing in my head and hinder my ability to help other people to do good things or to do what my heart says or what the Holy Spirit says because of what I believe about my self-worth. But that's another aside. I'm sorry. I met Peter. He helped me through all of those things. And at that time, we were just two different people. I was still hurting and aching, and I was still angry and upset, and I was still set in my ways of, you are not going to hurt me, and if you do, I will hurt you first. And that is not the way to be at all. So over my years, I grew, and God had done beautiful things, and I continued to pray for my heart to be open and renewed, and He just opened so many doors, and He blessed my heart so much. And yes, I cry so much more now than I had in the past 15 years, but it feels so good. Sometimes it hurts too, but it only hurts for a little bit. I'd say I've gotten a lot more love than I have hurt, and I'll be glad to have it that way. So sophomore year and junior year came around, and I feel by that time, looking back on it now, I had been built up. My heart was as squishy as you could have ever had it. You could have stomped on it, and it would have bled everywhere. But God would have healed it, and God would have taken care of it, but it was repaired. And sometime around junior year, things were still holding me back, and a couple more things that I had to get rid of to just fully love God, love my grandparents, and love just the way that my life had turned out. And I went home, and I went to my old church, and my grandpa was there. He goes to church. He's one of those that you hear, I think it's a Casting Crown song. It's one of those that you see that drunken man come in the back, and you see him lifting his hands, and you can either react one or two ways. You can sit the furthest you can from him and judge him and say, what is he doing here? He's filthy and dirty and gross. He is being hypocritical. He doesn't deserve to be here. or you can sit closest to him, enjoy his heart, enjoy what he has to offer, and sit in his humbleness with him and say, there but by the grace of God go I. And that's what I think. So I went to church and I sat on the other side. And knowing that I missed him, but that he still kind of hurt me, and I was trying to understand what it meant to forgive. At some point in time, I thought forgiving meant forgetting, and it's not true. Forgiving is meaning that I know what you did, but it's no longer held against you. And that service that day, Pastor Randy was kind of sitting in the back, because I'd been at college, I hadn't been there in a long time, and I was sitting there, and he was talking about forgiveness. And again, God just puts you in the right place at the right time. And if God had ever called me out and he said, you need to do this, you need to do that, I would have been glad to do it. I said, yes, Lord, I know, I'm sorry. Help me do it, because I can't really do it, but I'll do it. And that day, just talking about forgiveness, and I got to the end of the service, and he's like, if you have somebody you need to forgive, God is calling you. And I'm sitting in the back like, when is this service over, and I was sat there, and I kind of, what I was doing was trying to hide it, was trying to back out of this situation, out of this environment that I knew obviously God was saying, you should do this now, right now. And I sat in the back, and I looked Pastor Rennie in the eye, and I shook my head. I said, no. And he pointed me out, and he said, Sandy, come up here. Or at least that's what I saw. And I started crying, and he led everyone in prayer, and I walked over to my grandpa, and I held his hand, and I squeezed it tightly. And he looked at me kind of shocked, like, hey, And I sat down while everyone was praying, and some people sat, some people stand, and he was still praying a very heartfelt prayer. Us charismatic Assembly of God people. And I just sat there, and I looked at him, and I said, only by God do I love you with all my heart. I told him that I was sorry. I told him that I was sorry for all the things that I had said and done to him. And I said, even though I remember all of the hurtful things that you've ever done to me, I will never again hold them against you. I forgive you, and I let all of it go. And he cried, and kind of, we just sat there and prayed together. And I think that was the last part of my heart that needed to go. And it was good. If I learned anything, forgiveness is not for the forgivee. Forgiveness is for the forgiver. To be forgiven helps your heart to know that someone else is giving you grace, to not be withheld in their heart by things you've already done. But forgiving someone helps the forgivee to not be bound by chains. If I had not forgiven him, I would continue to not be able to love him. I would continue to say that he does not deserve this or that, or I can't do this or that with him because of the things he's done to me. And I think that to be true, that forgiveness is not for the forgivee, it is for the forgiver. And it's good for the heart.